680 BC, 32:15 AM. In the 112th year of the Ethiopic dynasty of Egypt, King Esarhaddon of Assyria took Thebes in Upper Egypt in his first Egyptian campaign. He begins to rebuild Babylon and is the son of Queen Zakutus. Esarhaddon rules over both Assyria and Babylon. 677 BC, 32:18 AM. The Assyrians completely destroy the Phoenician city of Sidon, but the sea-girt city of Tyre is untouched. This is 68 years or 24,480 days after the Assyrians deported the 10 tribes of Israel in 745 BC. The solar year changed in 713 BC, 36 years earlier, so adding 5.25 days to each year gives us exactly 189 days, which means that the 24,448th day from Israel's deportation could still well fit within the year 677 BC, when the Assyrians returned to the west. This invasion was 552 years after the fall of Troy in 1229 BC, and 770 years, 70 times 11, after the exodus of Israel from Egypt in 1447 BC. 673 BC, 32:22 AM. Tullius Hostilius becomes third king of Rome, his reign lasting 33 years until 641 BC. This is the 80th year of Rome. 671 BC, 32:24 AM. King Esarhaddon of Assyria invades Aram, Syria, annexing it, and then astonishes the world by crossing his army over the Sinai Desert to attack Lower Egypt by surprise, sacking the ancient city of Memphis, Heliopolis, on. 668 BC, 32:27 AM. Ashurbanipal ascends the throne of Assyria, the grandson of Sennacherib, a king remembered by the Greeks as Sardanapalaus. He ascended at death of Esarhaddon by the guidance of Queen Zakutu. He was a scholar appointed as king, and he set out to collect all the ancient texts of the Near East and abroad, sending scholars to distant nations to obtain copies of the oldest writings. He collected about 26,000 texts. He is famous for this library of Nineveh, which was discovered in 1850 AD, cuneiform records that have aided modern scholars in understanding the ancient world. A stone tablet written by himself boasts that his sages taught him the tablets, quote, from before the flood, unquote. This year begins a 666-year countdown to the birth of Jesus, c. 2 BC. He was a son of Esarhaddon. 1. A short history of the world. 2. Elder gods in antiquity. 661 BC, 32:34 AM. King Ashurbanipal invades Egypt and sacks Thebes in Upper Egypt, ending the Ethiopic dynasty which began its first year 130 years earlier. This is the 300th year of the Neo-Assyrian Empire begun in 961 BC, and the 90th year of the Babylonian Nabosannah calendar that began in 751 BC. In this year, the Greek city of Byzantium was founded at the narrowest strait between Europe and Asia. This city would later be called Constantinople and be the seat of the Eastern Orthodox Roman Empire, a city overrun by the Turks in 1453 AD, now called Istanbul. This is 270 years or 3240 months, being 1080 times 3, after Israel and Judah separated in civil war in 931 BC. This was 115 years after the Olympiad calendar began, or 1380 months. 138 times 10. 138 is a phoenix orbit, and 92 years after Rome was founded, or 1104 months, 552 plus 552. The prophet Nahum at this time prophesied that the Assyrian capital of Nineveh would be laid waste and hidden from mankind. This was difficult for anyone to believe, for Nineveh had walls 100 foot high, thought to be impregnable, high towers, and the city covered a vast area. But this is exactly what occurred over time after the Babylonians and Israelites, as will be shown, destroyed Nineveh. The ruins of the city were not reoccupied but were covered by the desert over the centuries, and not rediscovered until 1842 AD. 1. A short history of the world. 2. Nahum. 657 BC, 32:38 AM. The ruling families of Corinth are expelled and emigrate to Macedonia, where many people from Asia Minor were settling. It was 150 years earlier that Macedon was settled by the descendants of Israelites. Further, Corinth was founded by Israelites as demonstrated earlier, the Ionians and Danaan. The immigration to Macedon makes sense in this light. This was 1242 years after the Babel dispersion, or 414 times 3 years. This was 270 years after Egypt invaded Judah in 927 BC. 1. Alexander of Macedon. 655 BC, 3240 AM. After 330 years below the inner solar system, the ancient Earth-killer comet group ascends and crosses the ecliptic. If they were seen from Earth, it is not known. What is revealed by these astonishing calendrics is that something of epic importance occurred in this year for Israel or Israelite descendants. 3240 Annus Mundi, 1080 times 3, and 2760 years, 552 times 5, before Armageddon. This was 2448 of the Vedic calendar, 1224 plus 1224, and it was 1224 years after the Battle of Kurukshetra, when the East fought the West and won in 1879 BC. This was also 1584 years, 792 plus 792, after the flood, 2239 BC, and 792 years after the Exodus that occurred in 1447 BC, or 2448 AM. As this was 2760 before Armageddon, it was also 276, 138 plus 138 after Israel and Judah split in the civil war of 931 BC. This was 90 years, 1080 months after the 10 tribes of Israel were deported into Assyria. As this was also 756 years, 108 times 7, after the Israelites conquered the kingdoms of Sihon and Og of Bashan in 1411 BC, and exactly 600 years, great year, since the Danaan dynasty of Mycenae was founded in 1255 BC. The sum total of these calendrics indicates that a mighty Israelite movement ended in this year and began a nation. Perhaps further research will shed light on what great people were founded in 655 BC. 645 BC, 3250 AM. Ashurbanipal of Assyria invades Persia and destroys its capital city, Susa. The Assyrians used Israelite auxiliaries in their forces. This was 720 years after many Israelites fled on ships in 1345 BC. After 286 years beneath the inner solar system, the Sodom-Trojan apocalypse comet group passes through the inner system. 642 BC, 3253 AM. The Romans engaged and defeated the Sabines at Mantrap Wood, and just after the battle a rain of stones fell from heaven upon Mount Alba near Rome. Reports filtered in that the stones had fallen upon the countryside and men were dispatched to investigate the stones. Shortly afterward a plague broke out and even sickened King Tullius Hostilius. Then a bolt of lightning struck the palace and burnt it down, with the king inside dying. This is the third year of the Sodom-Trojan apocalypse comet group, a pattern repeated after that of the astronomical omens and comets that afflicted the world in 1229 BC during the fall of Troy, which was the third year of this same comet group. In 1229 BC, flux tube blasts, thunderbolts, from heaven melted many forts and stone surfaces, vitrifying them in Anatolia, and this lightning that struck the palace was also probably of a flux tube from space. 1 Livy.